Joined by the Social Services Minister Scott Morrison to discuss reforming your portfolio. I'm going to get to that other issue in a moment, Mr. Morrison, get your thoughts on it, but I do want to first of all start with the developments on the pension. Can you talk us through just what's going to happen here? 172,000 pensioners to actually be better off despite the taper rate being reduced.
Well, that's right. What we're doing on the pension is making sure there's fairer access for a more sustainable pension. That means we're lifting the level of assets that you can have when you're on a modest level of assets. That means there'll be 172,000 pensioners who will be better off to the tune of around $30 a fortnight when this comes into effect in January of 2017. So they will be better off. And then what we're doing is we're pulling back on the higher level of assets that you can hold to get a part pension. And that means that if you're currently a couple who owns your own home, you have over $1 million in additional assets, then no longer will you be able to access a part pension. You will be a fully self-funding retiree.
And from what point will people start to receive the part pension in terms of assets in addition to the family home?
It's at 800 for a couple. It's 823,000 in January of 2017, and that's if you own your own home. And there's the other rates that apply to non-homeowners and others, and they're all set out in today's Daily Telegraph.
Now, in terms of the issue, I guess, on those missing out. You've said that there's 172,000 better off, but there are going to be several hundred thousand with reduced payments, as well as those who miss out altogether?
Well, that's right, but what we're doing is we're reversing, getting rid of the proposal which was in last year's budget, which would have seen a slower rate of growth in the pension for all pensioners and pension-related benefit recipients. Now, that's around 4.1 million Australians. That proposal isn't going forward at all, and what that will be replaced by is this measure, which will see a better pension for those on low and modest levels of assets. Now, let's not forget that the average level of assets held, in addition to the family home, by pensioners is around 100,000 odd for those who haven't got a superannuation plan, and around 200,000 for those who do. So the overwhelming majority of pensioners will fall into this category of receiving the pension. But for those on higher levels of assets, well, we're saying that then that is a level of assets where you will be able to be a fully self-funded retiree. But one thing we won't do is what the Labor Party is going to do, and that is they're going to tax superannuants on the nest egg and the income that they are drawing down in their retirement. It's important, if we're going to reduce eligibility for the pension, which is a welfare payment for those who need it, that you give full support to those who are funding their own retirement by not hitting them with a tax sledgehammer, which is what Labor wants to do.
So never ever on that front? That's not going to be something the government would consider, because it's been certainly something that's been discussed as an area of very lucrative exemptions.
Well, no, they're not lucrative exemptions. What they are is people who've saved for their own retirement, who've put their own money away and are drawing down to support themselves and not drawing down on a pension. Now, if we're going to say, go out there and support yourself, well, you don't hit them with a tax sledgehammer, which is what Labor wants to do, because Labor thinks that actually taxing someone on the income that they've earned for their retirement is the same as giving someone a payment on welfare, and they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing, and we don't believe they're the same thing. We would rather people who've saved for their retirement be able to keep that money so they can live well in their retirement, but it doesn't mean that you're going to use the welfare system as an incentive scheme for superannuation. That's not what it's for.
But I guess one of the criticisms, Minister, is that the Labor Party would be changing it midstream on superannuants, but can't you be accused of doing the same thing for, say, pensioners who thought that they would have the support of a part pension, maybe spent a little more than they otherwise would, and now they lose it?
Well, no, because the pension is not a superannuation scheme. The pension is a welfare payment for those who need it, and we need to ensure increasingly that welfare is based on need, not on a sense of entitlement. You don't use the welfare scheme as an incentive scheme. You use it as to help people in need. The tax scheme is where you put the incentive, and that's where you provide the incentive to people to be able to save for their retirement, which is what the Howard Costello government did. I mean, what they want to do on superannuation now, Labor, is compel businesses to pay higher superannuation guarantee levies, which is basically the same as a tax for those businesses, and then they want to punish superannuants who have put their money away when they're in retirement and tax them more. Now, we just don't think that's the right way to go ahead. Sure, there will be loopholes that need to be closed, but those loopholes shouldn't be defined as the rule, which justifies just a massive broadening of the tax base on superannuants, which is what Labor wants to do.
And speaking of these loopholes, what about the former public servants, senior public servants, able to generate a very, healthy superannuation, but then also tap into the age pension? You're going to crack down on that. Can you talk us through how many individuals are concerned there?
Well, there's 48,000 people we understand are involved in this practice, and effectively they're flying under the radar on the income test for the pension, and they're doing that by being able to, currently under a loophole in the tax law, where you can claim a lower level of income even though you're getting a higher level of income because of the way your pension in the defined benefit scheme was set up. Now, I need to be very clear, it's quite a targeted group we're looking at. If you're in a retail type fund, which is along those lines, they're not affected. I should also stress that 2/3 of the people in these funds aren't overwroughting in this area. There'll be a 10% cap on what can be reduced for your income when it comes to assessing the pension. So it is about closing off a loophole. There was some unintended consequences of some legislation back in 2007, and that's been brought to my attention, and we're tidying that up. And together, these two measures, which we're announcing today, will bring $3 billion or thereabouts to the budget over the forward estimates, and that's necessary. If you're going to take something off the table, which I said, if we're going to take the CPI indexation off the table, you've got to put something on, and that's what we've done.
And finally, the two of your cabinet colleagues have told me that if this budget is a failure, that Joe Hockey has got to be replaced as Treasurer. Further to that, Nikki Saville reports this morning that Scott Buchholz had told the Prime Minister the same thing, based on feedback he's had from your colleagues, I guess the backbench colleagues, more to the point with Scott Buchholz. But what do you say to that view heading into Mr Hockey's second budget?
Oh, look, I just think this is more Canberra gossip, which I'm not terribly interested in. I'm interested, as I know all my colleagues are, and the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, in getting a fairer, more sustainable pension, and that's what we're focused on. I mean, this is just gossip, frankly, Kieran, and I'm not engaging in that. And I think, you know, the Treasurer has pulled together, I think, an excellent budget together with his colleagues, and it'll be an incremental improvement to surplus over time. It'll be responsible, it'll be fair, and I think this is what we're all been working together on, and it's been a very strong team effort, and he has my strong support because it's a big job. Every budget is important. Every budget is important, and this one no less, because we're still dealing with the fiscal arsony of the Labor Party, which continues unabated. Bill Shorten has had 2 ideas this year. They're all taxes.
Okay.
To expand the welfare base and just keep shoveling money out the door. And that's not the Treasurer's view, and I think that's the way forward.
But you say it's gossip, but Scott Buchholz on the record to Nikki Saville this morning, making it pretty clear.
Well, look, I just think it's just Canberra insider nonsense. And mate, this is Sky Agenda, not Who Weekly, so I'm not interested in talking about gossip.
Okay. Thanks for your time this morning. We'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, Kieran.
Now to the